Greetings from love, lies, and deception. Join us as we examine the tales and mysteries of adultery. This is a story of how someone may suddenly rediscover oneself while surrounded by new friends, sea breezes, and sunsets. My name is Melody. Before Everett moved in next door, I had assumed my life would be as easy and predictable as the waves in our New England seaside town. A young athlete with a toned physique that was noticeable even under loose clothing, Everett was unlike any man I had ever met. His self-assured gait and short, cut hair enhanced his appeal. Everett left a lasting effect on me from the first few days of his move. He would stop by my fence every day on his way back from his run at chat. Every word Everett said seemed like a compliment, and he was more than just a nice conversationalist. He would say something like, "Melody, you like the sun today, brightening everything around you with your smile?" And I would blush with shame. Our chance meetings at the fence became a routine. Despite a happy 10 years of marriage with Clayton, Everett brought me fresh flowers that he grew himself and shared books with me, saying that I would like them. With each visit, I became more curious about this man and more excited about his visits. When Clayton left for another business trip, Everett offered to help me in the garden. That day was especially hot, and after working in the garden, Everett invited me for coffee on his veranda, which offered a stunning view of the sea. We sat drinking coffee and discussing everything under the sun, and I noticed how my heart raced when he looked at me in the evening as the sun started to set, painting the sky in pastel shades of pink and orange. While listening to the whispers of the waves, we strolled in solitude. Everett came to a halt and looked at me, the sunset glimmering in his eyes. "I can't keep it a secret any longer, Melody. You are really important to me. My heart beats more quickly every day when I see you. I'm not sure what will happen next, but I'd like to hear what he has to say." His words had a deeper impact on my soul than anything I've ever experienced. He approached me slowly, and when his lips touched mine, I felt his breath on my face. Our kiss was deliberate and unhurried, as if we both understood the significance of this moment that night, when the sea bore witness to our secrets, which had only just begun to unfold after that evening on the beach. My feelings for Everett grew stronger, and I knew that it would be difficult to keep them hidden from Clayton. I tried to repress them by reminding myself of my marriage, but the more I resisted, the stronger they returned. The following day, when I went outside to water the flowers, Everett was already waiting for me by the fence. His cautious smile was accompanied by a spark in his eyes that warmed me even on that cool morning, Melody. As he handed me a freshly cut bouquet of wildflowers, he said, "I couldn't resist sharing this beauty with you." I took the flowers, and my fingers brushing against his gave me a shiver. "Thank you, Everett," I said, trying not to give in to the excitement he stirred within. Our meetings became a daily routine, and Everett would often invite me for tea or coffee after my morning walks. We spent hours talking about everything under the sun, including his travels, the paintings he had seen, and the music that inspired him. I listened to him eagerly, taking in every word, and felt the world start to change. One evening, after a meeting like this, I was about to leave when he abruptly said, "Melody, I'd like to show you something special tomorrow evening. Could you stay?" I nodded in agreement after he spoke in an extremely serious tone. I was both anxious and excited about our meeting the next day. The sky was already becoming dark when I got to Everett's house, and he showed me his studio, where his paintings were on exhibit. However, what I saw there was completely different from what I usually saw. A huge painting that showed a sunset seascape in tones I had never seen before stood in front of me. "I've spent the last few weeks working on this painting," he said. "Every day, Melody, I went here while thinking of you. I wanted to document the moment we spent together, the one that transformed my life." I couldn't take my eyes off the painting as I stood there, crying because it was the most exquisite thing I had ever seen and the most heartfelt thing anyone had ever done for me. Everett started, but my throat caught the words. He came over and grasped my hands. "Melody, I know this is difficult. To show you how much you inspired me, I had to do this without meaning to offend or mislead you. My life changed on that night, when I came to terms with the fact that I could no longer keep my feelings for Everett a secret from Clayton and myself, and that they were deeper than I had previously let myself acknowledge. However, the day following our studio meeting, how could I begin this subject with my husband, who trusted me, without him noticing the changes in my heart? Everett left a note in my mailbox. My heart skipped a beat as I unfolded the paper and read his neat handwriting. Melody, I would love to see you tonight for dinner at my place. Come by at 7, Everett. I read those lines over and over, feeling my heart begin to race. I knew this wasn't just dinner. It was something more, something that could change everything. Is deciding not to delay. I started getting ready. I pulled out my best dress from the closet, the one that always accentuated my figure. It was a dark blue dress with a deep back neckline and a form-fitting silhouette that highlighted all my curves. I applied light makeup to accentuate my eyes and put on my favorite high-heeled shoes. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, I felt mixed emotions: excitement, fear, and anticipation as I approached Everett's house. The sun was already setting, paint in the sky in golden and pink hues. The front door was ajar and soft jazz music was playing from inside. I knocked gently, and a moment later, Everett opened the door, his smile warm and welcoming. "Good evening, Melody," he said, his eyes carefully taking in my appearance from head to toe. "You look stunning." "Thank you, Everett," I said. "So do you," observing how his dark trousers and white shirt accentuated his toned figure. He led me into the living room, where a table was arranged with plates of fruit and lit candles. Glasses of champagne glittered on the table, and the aroma of fresh flowers filled the air. "I prepared something special for us," Everett said, directing me to the table. "I hope you like it." We sat down and began eating, discussing our lives, dreams, and memories, and I sensed our conversation becoming more personal and open as he told me about his travels and how he found inspiration everywhere. His eyes glowed with passion as he talked about his paintings, and he mentioned how every detail mattered. After dinner, Everett got up and walked over to me. His hand touched mine gently, and I felt a chill go through my body. We sat down together after he showed me to the couch. The music went on, and between us, Melody, there was an unstoppable magnetism. His voice was calm but certain as he added, "I can't hide my feelings for you any longer. You have transformed into something unique for me that I have never known before." I stared at him, uncertain of what to say. Words could not adequately express my feelings. I felt a surge of passion as Everett moved in to give me a gentle kiss. His lips were warm and soft. The lengthy, intense kiss was too strong for me to ignore. I let him to gently start taking my clothes off. Every touch was tender and considerate to him, as though he was worried about injuring me if the dress dropped to the ground. Taking my hands, Everett guided me into the bedroom. When we finally found ourselves on the bed, I could feel his body against mine. As Everett kept kissing me, I felt as though the outside world vanished, and we were the only two of us in our own universe. As his hands moved over my body, a fire inside of me was ignited that I was unable to put out. It was just as intense and lovely as I could have dreamed. We spent the night together, feeling our hearts beat in time, and I felt Everett's gentleness and attentiveness fill me with life with every kiss and touch. Everything changed that night, and I came to the realization that my feelings for Everett were genuine and profound. It was a night I would never forget. When I woke up the following morning in Everett's arms, the room was softly lit by the sun, and I felt a remarkable feeling of calm that I hadn't had in a long time. When Everett, who was still drowsy, smiled at me, I understood that this was more than a passing fancy. It was something that had transformed my life. I knew I had to exercise caution. Clayton was expected back from his business trip in a few days, and I wasn't sure how I would handle him. However, Everett's thoughts took precedence over all of my anxieties in the days that followed that night. We started going together daily. Sometimes we would just stroll down the beach, and other times we would hide in his studio while he painted. Every one of our meetings was passionate and emotional. Everett was often complimenting me on my beauty and how fortunate he was to have met me. With every day that went by, I could feel my feelings for him becoming stronger. Everett summoned me to his studio one evening as the sun was sinking. He had spent the last few days working on a new painting, which he wanted to show me. Upon inside, I noticed a large canvas that showed our shoreline in the moonlight. The painting was so realistic that it felt like I was standing right there under the starry sky, smelling the salty air. "This is for you, Melody," Everett said, looking at me with tenderness in his eyes. "You inspired me to create this." My eyes filled with tears. "Everett, it's beautiful." "Thank you," I whispered, stepping closer and taking his hand. He pulled me into a gentle kiss. The kiss was soft and deep, and I felt the world around us fade away. It was just the two of us and nothing else that mattered. Evenings with Everett became my refuge. We talked, laughed, and shared our thoughts and dreams. One day, he said, "Melody, you are changing my life. You give me the inspiration I have been searching for all my life." His words touched me deeply. I realized that our feelings were mutual and genuine, but I also knew that our romance had to remain a secret I couldn't betray Clayton despite all my feelings forever. When Clayton returned from his business trip, I tried to act as usual, but every time I looked into his eyes, I felt the weight of guilt. Everett understood my state and tried to be patient and attentive. He knew I was torn between duty and my feelings. We decided to meet less frequently to avoid suspicion, but each of our meetings was filled with passion and tenderness that I could no longer hide. We found secluded places where we could be together without fear of being seen. These moments were priceless to me, and I cherished every second I spent with him. One evening, when Clayton was at a meeting with colleagues, Everett invited me for a picnic on the shore. We sat on a blanket, surrounded by candles, and listening to the sound of the waves. The night was warm, and the stars shone brightly. Everett took out a guitar and started playing a melody he had composed just for me. "This song is about you, Melody," he said, playing the first chords. His voice was soft and poignant, and I felt tears rolling down my cheeks when the song ended, and Everett set the guitar aside and came closer to me. He gently embraced me and whispered, "I love you." Melody, those words pierced through me. I felt that I loved him too, but I didn't know how to say it. Instead of words, I just kissed him. It was a long, passionate kiss that seemed to last forever. We spent the night on the shore, enjoying each other's company and forgetting about everything else. It was a night that changed everything. I knew I could no longer live without Everett, but I also understood that our love had to remain a secret. Every morning, I woke up with thoughts of him, and every evening I fell asleep reminiscing about our meetings, but I knew that at some point I would have to make a choice, and that choice would be the hardest of my life. The day after our romantic dinner with Everett, I felt like I was on cloud nine. Thoughts of him never left my mind for a second, and I had already started making plans for our future, yet at the same time, I was tormented by guilt towards Clayton. I knew I had to make a decision, but I couldn't fathom how to approach that conversation. That evening, Clayton stayed late at work. He often worked late, but he always informed me. This time, he neither answered my calls nor replied to my messages. Initially, I thought he was just busy, but with each passing minute, my anxiety grew. A couple of hours later, I decided to drive to his office. By the time I arrived, it was late, and the building seemed deserted. I went inside and headed towards Clayton's office. The door was slightly ajar, and muffled sounds came from within. I cautiously pushed the door open and froze. Clayton was there, but he wasn't working. A young woman was sitting on the desk in front of him, and they were making love. My feet felt rooted to the floor, and I couldn't move or utter a sound in that moment. My emotions were a whirlwind. I felt both pain and relief from Clayton's betrayal, but relief at the realization that our marriage was finally over. I stood there watching them, understanding that this was the end of our story. I quietly closed the door and left the building. I didn't want to create a scene or confront him. It was unnecessary. Instead, I got into my car and drove home. The road was long and empty, giving me time to process everything that had happened. When I got home, I felt a sense of liberation, a liberation from the guilt that had been weighing me down. Now I could be with Everett without feeling guilty. I knew that a long conversation awaited me with Clayton, but I was ready for it now. The next day, I met with Everett and told him everything. He listened attentively, his eyes filled with care and understanding. "Melody, I am here for you. Whatever happens, I will be by your side," he said, holding me close. That evening, when Clayton returned home, he looked exhausted and irritated. I approached him and calmly said, "We need to talk." Clayton looked at me and nodded. We sat down on the couch, And I was at your office last night. I saw him with another woman. His face turned pale, and he lowered his eyes. Melody, he started, but I stopped him with no excuses, Clayton. I think we need to part ways. We both deserve happiness, and I know I found mine. Clayton silently nodded, understanding that arguing was pointless. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said quietly, and I saw that he was hurt too. The next day, I packed my things and moved in with Everett, and we began a new life together filled with love and passion. I knew there would be many challenges ahead, but I was ready for them because I was now with the one I truly loved. Every day with Everett felt like a new chapter in our shared story. We looked at the world together, inspiring each other and creating something new and beautiful. Although our past was full of pain and betrayal, we found happiness in the present and hoped for a bright future after I moved in with Everett. Our life took on new colors each day, and he was filled with love, passion, and inspiration. We built our world together, one that had room for creativity, mutual understanding, and genuine happiness. But looking back, I realized that our path to this happiness wasn't easy, and I have some advice for those who might be facing a similar choice. If you feel that you no longer love the person you're living with, if your feelings have faded and you no longer find joy in their presence, it's important not to stay in the relationship out of habit or attachment. It's crucial to be honest with yourself and with those you love, continuing to stay together when your heart is no longer in it is painful for everyone. You waste time and energy try to rekindle something that is gone. Instead, you need to find the courage to admit that you need to move. I know how hard it is to take that step. For many years, I lived in my marriage with Clayton, believing that our routine was what made us strong. But over time, I realized that this was not the case. Our relationship had become a shadow of what it once was. Only after meeting Everett did I understand what it meant to truly live in love. I'm not saying you should run away from every problem in your relationship, but if you genuinely feel that your feelings have faded, don't be afraid to admit it to yourself and your partner. Give yourself the chance to live a new life filled with the emotions and experiences you deserve. Sometimes we stay in relationships out of fear of the unknown or fear of being alone. But being alone is not always a bad thing. It can be a time for self-development, for finding yourself and your true desires. And perhaps this time will help you meet the person who will truly become your other half. Be honest with yourself and don't fear change. Life is too short to waste it on pretense and half measures. Strive to make your future the way you want it to be. For Everett and me, this future became a reality together. We created a world where each day is filled with happiness and love. And every time I look at him, I know I made the right choice. My story is not just about love and betrayal. It is a lesson that true love is more than just a habit or attachment. It is respect, inspiration, and the desire to be together no matter what. So if you feel that your feelings have faded, don't be afraid to take a step forward. Your happiness depends on you, and only you can make your life the way you want it to be. And remember, love always finds a way to those who are ready to accept it.